3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, this is Nick from Mecha Warehouse, and today we're going to do another Q&A video. The last one was fun, and I've got a ton more questions this time, so I look forward to answering those. Before I get started though, I wanted to make a quick announcement. As of about a week ago, I put in my notice for my consulting gig. It's supposed to end anyway, but I've drawn a hard line in the sand, so as of August 1st, I'll be basically relying on this full time. I'm not sure if it's there yet or not, but trying to balance the two has just been driving me nuts. So I'm gonna try to make that the thing. Appreciate all the support so far for anybody who's been a customer, and just know that if you are shopping at Mecha Warehouse going forward, you definitely are supporting me and my family. So I really appreciate that. So with that said, let's get on to some of these questions. So here's a good one to start. Timothy Lessman on Facebook asks, how did you convince your wife to let you become a distributor out of your house, or anywhere for that matter? I can't get mine to let me even display them. What paints do you like to use? Do you ever weather your GunPla? I'm currently attempting to weather the Force Impulse I got from you. We'll include pics in the kit review. So first off, thank you for purchasing from us, Timothy. I'll answer each of those questions. So first off, how did you convince your wife to let you become a distributor out of your house? I'm not really sure if I can put it into words, but I've been able to convince her of lots of crazy ideas and things. I mean, about 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, I convinced her to let me leave the 9-to-5 corporate world to start my consulting business, which also led to me starting my dojo around the same time, in addition to the consulting business. I've convinced her to let me take large amounts of money out of our home equity loan to put into things like this. So I'm not really sure why she lets me do that. I think there's definitely a trust that we've built up there. She knows I don't do things completely willy-nilly and make poor decisions very often. And so I guess trust is the big thing, and ultimately she wants me to be happy, I think, and she's willing to let me do what I feel like I need to do in order to seek out that happiness. So I don't do a ton of painting. I'd like to do a lot more. I'm a big fan of the Vallejo Mecha line, and the main reason I chose that is, I guess, a couple of reasons. The main one is the toxicity. Acrylics are a lot safer to spray inside the house than, say, lacquers or enamels. I do have a spray booth and everything, which helps, but having kids in the house and just not wanting to be aerosolizing toxic compounds, it was kind of a no-brainer. I don't know if Vallejo Mecha is, of the acrylics, their claim to fame for that particular line of paint is that it's specifically intended for Gundam type models, mecha models, that tend to have a little bit higher touch than, say, a model car or a model tank and stuff like that. So they're supposed to be durable. I guess the jury's still out on how durable they are. I haven't really put that really to the test, but they're supposed to be a good line of paint, so that's why I chose it and why I carry it. Michael Fours on Facebook asks, what was your favorite build? Also, what would you recommend as far as 1/100 hanger dioramas? So I'm not sure if I have a particular favorite build. I could answer this a bunch of different ways. I was a big fan of most of the Master Grade Wing Series kits. If you've been watching my Twitch a lot, or watching my YouTube lives, a lot of them have been building those kits. I've basically coming up on completing all of them and putting all the finishing touches on all the non-P Bandai ones anyway. Master Grade Heavy Arms was a favorite of mine. I'm also a huge fan of the high grade Magnat kit. I've built 41 of them because of a charity live stream I did last year, and I still think I would build another one again if I had a good reason to. So it's a pretty solid high grade kit. As far as 1/100 hanger dioramas, I've looking at the Kotobukiya chain bases. I think Kotobukiya is who makes them. Those look amazing to me and seem like a good option, or whoever makes them, but they're hard to get a hold of, it sounds like. So hopefully at some point I'll get them in the shop, because I think those are the go-to, especially for 1/100. Robert Gallion asks, do you as a seller distributor of GunPla give feedback to Bandai, Namco, and future kits the fan base in the United States would want? Or does Bandai dictate the offering space that takes from Japan, or is it purely sales volume? So I know I definitely don't give them feedback. I might give them feedback, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't get to the people that make decisions. I definitely tell them what I think would sell well. When I have conversations with my rep and stuff, I believe Japan drives a lot of that, and they definitely pay attention to sales numbers, and that's very evident by the USP Bandai opening up and offering the Gundam Wing P Bandai kits from like 10 years ago again. They're definitely paying attention to what sells over here. So hopefully they'll get better at feeding that back into new kits. I'm not sure exactly what the ratio is or what proportion of global sales the US is. But as we grow the hobby and get more involved, the more say and the more will influence what they produce for kits, I think. So another good question from Facebook. Dustin Bowser asks, what is your favorite and least favorite part of running your business? How do you keep it fun and feeling less like a job? So I think that my favorite part is probably communicating with my customers in a weird way. I don't necessarily enjoy dealing with the customer service issues when somebody has an issue. When something gets lost in the mail or damaged or anything like that, I definitely don't enjoy having to deal with those problems per se, but I love hearing feedback from my customers. I love trying to communicate with them, and we've got the Discord, which I think has been mentioned on here a few times before. The community that we've built and being able to share the hobby in a bi-directional way. I'm not just broadcasting what I'm doing, but being able to see other builders get better, watch as they come into the hobby is just amazing. One of the other deeper part is, for some reason, I enjoy figuring out logistics and systems. I'm an engineer by training. I think my brain's wired for engineering work, which is why I went into that field as a consultant and did my degrees in engineering. The figuring out of what's the best way to do something and trying to be efficient has always been interesting to me as well. It's sometimes frustrating when we come across problems packing orders or trying to figure out how to process inventory and we come across a new situation, but trying to build that system is very, very exciting to me. The least favorite is probably, what would be the least favorite? I think my least favorite right now is dealing with specifically things like shipping issues and the like. It is extremely painful for me, where I'm bouncing all over the place and juggling a million things at any given time, to communicate with UPS and the post office to try to track down missing packages. It's part of the job, needs to get done. It's not that bad, but it's definitely could be easier. Those companies don't make it super easy to communicate with them. Crash Demo, would SD models be better for beginner painters, or should they just dive into whatever and see what happens? That's a good question. So I think SDs could be a good place to start. They're definitely really simple. So if figuring out all the moving pieces of priming and painting a kit, you don't need as many skewers if you're airbrushing, things like that. Definitely be easier. Just about any good high grade can be a good place to start too. Personally, my first painted build was the high grade Leo, and I've painted an SDCS kit as well. They're all good options. It really depends on how you're painting and what you need to figure out. When do I paint pieces? Do I paint pieces and put them together? Do I need to put parts together, maybe close seam lines and then paint them? Those kind of issues definitely are part of the problem. And then you also have dealing with airbrush issues, figuring out your thinning ratios, just getting the technique down. So the simpler the kit is for the first one, and the more you can isolate those particular problems as you paint for the first time, the less frustrated you'll probably end up being, in my opinion. If you're easily frustrated by things when they don't go your way, making the stepping stones simpler and easier so you can gradually build up your skills is definitely the way to go. Gundam Hard Customs, how does one start their own GunPla online store? A few easy steps. Step 1, be batshit crazy.
Here's Johnny.
Step 2, somehow convince your wife to let you do crazy things. In all seriousness, there's I think a few different paths to it. I was actually, I want to say, almost cagey about answering these kind of questions a few months ago, because I had this feeling in the back of my mind like I'm going to get somebody started and they're going to be a competitor. And I'm much less worried about that after feeling how challenging this has been over the last couple months. It's been exciting and fulfilling, but I have a feeling that a lot of people don't have the time, energy, or stomach for it. So I think the real step 1 is figure out how bad you want it and how how big you want to go with it before you get started. Because if you want to be the next big GunPla retailer, which I'm beginning to feel like is kind of my goal here, be the number one, number two, number three in those top couple spots, and be big but provide the same customer service we've had is my goal. But for some people, selling a few kits on the side is definitely an option. So if I were to do this again, I would probably recommend starting reselling P Bandai. I've decided not to resell P Bandai with Mecha Warehouse because it's another place I need capital, and the stuff doesn't necessarily turn over as fast, and you've got to wait. You have your money tied up for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months waiting for orders, your P Bandai orders to come in. But you can easily sell those items on eBay. If anything, they're going to gain value with time because they're limited edition items, and it's much easier to buy a dozen P Bandai kits. You don't need any sort of special distributor accounts, wholesale accounts, and trying to turn those over, perhaps starting on eBay and maybe starting a Shopify store, is probably a pretty good way to go. And then as you expand those offerings and build up your capital, build up your experience shipping orders, dealing with customer service, and you can gradually look at trying to get an account with a distributor. Probably one of the hardest things when I started, looking back, was getting that distribution chain figured out. I ended up going straight to places in Japan because I didn't realize there were distributors here that I could go with. And that caused me some headaches because it was hard to get items into the country at an economical and competitive price, especially at that the volume that I was doing when I started. So part of the problem with getting some of those accounts sometimes depends on the distributor. The big ones sometimes want you already to be running a store and selling things. So building that track record and selling limited edition kits to start, I think is a good stepping stone. Scott Thomas 83 on Instagram asks, which suit would you most like to see released in master grade? In my opinion, the master grade that needs to happen is a master grade Leo, or really any of the wing grunts, but the Leo would have to be the first one. Of any kit, I think that's the one that any Gundam wing fan anyway that builds master grades has asked, hey, anyone know if there's a Leo kit? When's it coming out? There isn't one. I know that there's some resin kits and conversion kits and such, but Bandai really needs to make a master grade Leo. And if I were running Bandai, that would be probably my first decision as new king of the GunPla world, would be to make that master grade Leo. And really, talking about Leo, all the other high grade wing kits, the grunts need to come out. I have a feeling they kind of will, but I really think they need to be made. Okay, Nathan Bird 25 on Instagram asks, what kit or where would you recommend getting started in this hobby? I've always enjoyed the Gundam universe and watching kits be built. I'd like to start one myself, but have no clue where to begin. So this is another good question. I basically answered this in the other Q&A. Highly recommend the high-grade RX-78 Revive, HG Magnac, and HG Leo all three are great, easy kits to start with. And you should check out the video I posted last week where I basically go through building a high-grade kit. A good way to kind of get the feel for the basics if you've never built a kit before and kind of see what you're getting yourself into. Spacebar 2020 on Instagram asks, how do you predetermine shipping costs? Does weight matter? What happens when you deal with a box that's too heavy? How do you know which box to use? By the way, I love the personal touch and the invoices. Thank you, Spacebar. Really, really appreciate it. So shipping costs in GunPla is an interesting problem. That was another thing that I had to overcome when I got started, trying to figure out what to charge for shipping and how to figure that out. One of the big issues in shipping GunPla is the fact that kits tend to be more volumetric than they are weighty. So if you're shipping small, heavy objects, you can use the shipping calculators really easily because 5 pounds of a relatively dense object is going to be 5 pounds. It almost doesn't matter how you package it. It's going to cost the same to ship it. When you ship an item that's bulkier but lighter, you end up hitting what's known as volumetric weight or volumetric shipping, which means that they're basing the shipping weight based on the size of the box and what that should on average weigh because that item is so bulky. The vast majority of the boxes we ship, it's based on that size. So we've created kind of a lookup table, if you will, of shipping rates or what the volumetric size of a kit is. And from that, we can determine, kind of guessing what size box it will be in. But we top that off at a high end and we just eat the extra shipping cost on larger orders. It's simpler than offering free shipping after a certain point, and I think our prices are really competitive from the get-go. That I think it all kind of works out. Smaller items can be heavier, some of the accessories and stuff. So if you were to order a whole bunch of markers or paint tends to be heavy. That kind of throws that off. But based on that lookup table, it's all kind of factored in. In terms of what happens when the box is too heavy, that doesn't really happen. The heaviest box I've shipped was, I think, 3 perfect grade kits, which basically went into one of the large boxes that I usually receive for incoming, and I just stuck a label on it and packed it up nice. If it gets too heavy, you just start shipping multiple boxes. In terms of how do you know which box to use, literally when I pack, if you watch that packing video, you might even see it. I forget if I do it or not, but I basically stack up the kits on my scale or on my packing surface, and I will measure. I've got a really good feel for what size the different kits are. And usually it's just a matter of laying them out and seeing, do I go with the 6-inch tall, the 8-inch tall, or the 10-inch tall box, or do I need to pick some other option? Taylor Hajash, hopefully I pronounced that right. What was the most difficult part of opening your business? I'm opening a tattoo shop, and for me, it was finding a landlord to allow us to even put a tattoo shop on their property. Did you find difficult to find funding, buildings, etc., while opening a niche business? So first off, congrats on opening a business. Probably the best and worst thing that'll happen to you in the short term. Hopefully it goes well and you find some success. For me, opening the business, I think I addressed this in an earlier question, but the most difficult thing for me was getting started. I think was finding out how to get that supply chain figured out. I'm not a retail guy by any experience. I don't think I even really worked in retail school. I worked in a library and a car dealership were some of my like high school jobs. I never worked in retail, so I didn't really see how retail works behind the scenes before starting this. I just kind of figured it out as I went. And so trying to figure out how to source kits at a good price, dealing with all that receiving stuff for me was challenging. Capital wasn't really an issue. I'm running the business out of my house. Dealing with that space is a challenge too, but much more easily figured out. It took me a while to figure out how to get source kits. Okay, Doug Wilder. So one, I saw on the Gundam merchandising panel that was part of AX Lite that there's some sort of card incentive with retailers. This skimmed over a little bit, but it sounds like you go to a retailer selling GunPla, you get an incentive card. Are you going to take part in this promotion as an online-only retailer? For that question, yes. We will be taking part. It's part of the 40th anniversary thing, I think, of GunPla. They are sending out cards that have a code that you can use to enter to win prizes. Good timing on me answering these. If I'd filmed this video yesterday morning, I wouldn't have answered this question the same way because I got a call from my rep asking how many of those cards I needed. So we will definitely be putting them in. It's from August 1st to December 30th while cards are available. So something to keep in mind if you place orders. You get one of those with every order in that time range. Which kit do you think is most due for an update, like the high grade revives or master grade 2.0s? So from my personal recent experience, I think all the Gundam wing variants, I think the heavy arms, Death Scythe, Sandrock, Shenlong all hold up really well, but the transforming kits, the shoulders just frankly suck. I think they need to be improved, even a 1.5, which hopefully we'll get with the new Verkad that's coming out, but we'll have to wait and see. For what's one of your holy grail kits, the one you've always wanted to build but can't seem to find anywhere, or the price is just too high? So I'm actually getting my holy grail kits, so I'll have to pick new ones, but the ones that for me were the again on the Gundam Wing topic, the master grade wing series kits. The P Bandai ones have always been just too pricey to make sense. Heavy Arms Custom, Sandrock Custom, and Ultron. And actually I think I got Tallgeese 3 coming as well. All are on USP Bandai right now. So if you've been looking for those kits and didn't know about it, definitely jump on to the USP Bandai site and pre-order those. Aaron Crowley, what's your most difficult GunPla you have ever assembled? Let's see, what was the most difficult one? I don't feel like anything that I've built in terms of GunPla is difficult per se. There's some challenges with them, but I wouldn't say that any of them are really super difficult. But I also haven't built any perfect grades or any of the really crazy kits that are out there. You could say that building the entire Mackinac core was difficult, and that technically was basically one kit. So maybe I'll go with that for that answer. Jake Temkins on Facebook, what's your best advice and technique on how to remove stubborn nubs? So I think if you have difficulty with nubs, if they aren't coming off, it's probably a good indicator you might need to refresh your sandpaper or sanding sticks, that they might just no longer have the grit they need. Keep in mind that if you have issues with marking, that you probably need to cut that nub a little bit further away from the surface and then sand that down carefully to be level with the surface, and that will decrease the amount of marking you get on the plastic. Christopher Robin, as a builder, what grade do you find the most satisfying? So I'm a big fan of master grade kits. High grades are nice, SDs can be fun, but master grades are where it's at for me. I'm sure when I try a perfect grade or real grade that I might change my mind, but at least for now, master grade is the grade for me. McCord Grimes, if money were no object, which Gundam would you build 1-to-1 scale and actually pilot? So assuming that real world physics applies, it'd probably be heavy arms, because I think that's the most practical, since beam sabers might not actually be possible. And I've always been a fan of big guns. So Stephen Algwin asks, so my question is an intersection of running a business and Gundam GunPla. I want to own a comic book, hobby shop, etc. in the near future. How does one go about getting a solid relationship with getting GunPla into the United States? You don't have to worry about getting it into the United States. You just need to find a distributor or distributors that are already doing that for you. In the US, Bluefin Distribution, Bluefin Corp, Bluefin Brands, I think they've got a couple different trade names, but Bluefin is the distributor, the importer of GunPla in the United States. It's possible to get it in around them and do it some other way, but they are the way that it's supposed to come in. Bluefin's owned by Bandai. It's kind of their channel to get it in, and ultimately all the other distributors ultimately get it from Bluefin. So depending on where you are, Bluefin is probably the one that you'd really want to get in with. Like I said in an earlier question, if you don't already sell stuff and you don't already have a presence, especially if you're online, getting in with them can be somewhat difficult. Shipping is worth considering. If you are on the East Coast like I am, Bluefin's on the West Coast, so that makes shipping expensive if you're not buying large quantities. So keep that in mind too. And there are definitely some other distributors. If you search around for GunPla or Gundam hobby distributors, there are definitely several other hobby distributors in the US that would be happy to sell to you. They might not have the same selection or the same prices, but they definitely can help you get GunPla for your hobby shop. And they can help you with some of the other things that Bandai and Bluefin don't have. If you want Tamiya paints or other hobby supplies, you're going to want a connection with those distributors anyway. So it's worth doing a search for those. So XX Nike 0629XX on Instagram asks, what are some of the day-to-day operation struggles you experience often? How do you deal with them? So I think the day-to-day dealing with shipping claims, they've been pretty rare, but as we do more volume, we're seeing more of those. Those are definitely a huge struggle, especially with our relationship with Shopify. We can't directly go to UPS right now, so that's definitely an issue. The other one is because we're out of the house and operating in the house, managing inventory and our backup stock of inventory is difficult. We've got enough shelves for a few of each kit that we sell. As we deplete those, we got to go back to kind of the back room, if you will, and get more of those kits. That could be in the attic, it could be in the hall downstairs, it could be in the basement, trying to keep track of where those kits are and managing that as efficiently as possible and saving space, condensing boxes. It adds a lot right now, and something that getting a warehouse will save a lot of time for me, I think. And question 2, how do you deal with receiving damaged goods from the business side of things? So we've been dealing with that a lot recently with that big shipment that was damaged. So what we ended up having to do for that is go through basically every box that had damaged goods. We were taking pictures of everything, recording everything, and then basically had to talk to a distributor to get either compensation or replacements. All the distributors we worked with that have had damaged goods have been good on this so far. Sometimes it takes a little longer than I'd like, but that's just the nature of business. Just so everybody knows, if you watch that video with all the damaged stuff, we did get approval for credit for the damaged goods, so we will be selling that on our Discord at a discounted price. So 3, did you ever imagine yourself as a business owner? I think so. I was definitely in college thinking about how I wanted to work for myself. because I have trouble following someone else's vision, especially when they don't execute that vision well. I've yet to work for somebody where at least at some point they didn't feel like they let me down in terms of what they were trying to do or how they were achieving it, and just left me frustrated. And so being able to be in control allows me to do things the way I think they need to be done. Thankfully, everybody else seems to agree so far that I'm doing things well. So number 4, has the pandemic impacted your business much? Yes, it has. Without the COVID-19 pandemic, I don't think I'd be talking to you today, especially in that it created two things for me. One, it boosted demand quite a bit in the GunPla space. All the GunPla retailers are flat out right now. That's why a lot of our competitors are taking a week or more in order to get things out the door. And it's primarily due to our size and just my sheer determination to do the best I can for my customers. It's allowing us to get things out the same day or the next day. The other thing is it created the opportunity for the infamous quarantine proof your backlog video. That was the first me talking to the camera video that I really did. There were a couple other ones that didn't really do much, but that video got us a lot of attention. That Facebook ad connected a lot of people to the business and basically helped us 10x essentially overnight, which is why that I'm able to basically try to make this my full-time thing now. Does anyone in your family or close friends enjoy GunPla? Not really. I've got my son to build a kit. He enjoyed it. He'll probably build more. I had my wife build a kit. She's been helping with the business. I got her a petite guy Sarah for her birthday, which she enjoyed, and she's trying to figure out what her next kit will be. But other than that, I don't think anyone in my close friends or family does that I know of. Thank you with all the questions here. 9, what are some things you plan to do in the near far future? I've got lots of ideas. Most of them I don't want to share. I'm working on getting some more Mecha Warehouse branded merch in, maybe some other stickers, maybe some different shirts, some posters, some hats, patches, I don't know, things like that. No firm plans yet, but I'm working on that. Potentially some other Mecha Warehouse branded GunPla stuff, tools and accessories. Still trying to figure out how to navigate that, and really time's been the biggest factor there, but hoping to expand into that area and just adding more product lines. We're working on a few big ones right now that people will be very excited when we get them in. So hopefully I'll have news about that in the next week or two. 12, what most important things to be mindful of when you're running a business? A good question. It's important to pay attention to legal stuff, what laws you need to follow. I think we often neglect that or don't think of that when we're getting started, trying to get bogged down by it, but you got to be mindful of what's there. Accounting and taxes, we're not always aware of what we're going to be charging taxes. This, especially if you're ever consulting, people are not aware of from the get-go how much more you pay in taxes when you don't have an employer paying their share of your Social Security and such. So that's important. Insurance, you got to make sure you're insured for the appropriate things, so that way it all doesn't go away if something bad happens. Customer service is really important. That really should be number 1. I think every business should keep how they deal with and provide value to their customers should be their number 1 concern, and something that shows you mindful of. 14, what are your thoughts on Premium Bandai? Do you think it's good or bad for the GunPla industry as a whole? I don't know if it's good or bad for the industry. I think for consumers it's good because it lets you get kits that they otherwise wouldn't be able to make, because it just wouldn't make sense and they produce those kits over and over again. I think they get it wrong sometimes about which kits are P Bandai and which kits are not P Bandai, but there's not much you can do about that. I think if it's bad at all, what's bad about it is that it causes individuals, small businesses, and large businesses even to gouge often on the prices. I've refused, now that USP Bandai exists and you can get the kits locally, I'm not going to buy and resell P Bandai for the foreseeable future. But it's hard to do it and not charge way more than you paid for. It makes sense, and there's an arbitrage of value there, because if you weren't in on the initial buy and you wanted a kit that was released as a P Bandai, being able to get it secondhand is valuable. But it's such a fluid space that it's really hard to get the best price sometimes, and people get taken advantage of a lot. Okay, here's a good one. 23. Besides Gundam and GunPla, do you have any other hobbies? So yes, I've got a few other hobbies. I don't have a whole lot of time for those things. Some of them right now because of the way things work. Some might say that karate and jujitsu are hobbies of mine. I would say that they're more of a lifestyle than a hobby, but I think they fall in this category. I've been training Kyokushin karate for since '93, I think, 27 years in August. Teaching and running a dojo on the side for that. Been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for since late December 2013, so coming up on 7 years. Haven't been able to do that for a few months because of COVID. Hopefully be able to get back to that soon. I like to noodle around with the guitar from time to time. I'm definitely not very good at all. Kind of teach myself to play the guitar a little bit. Enjoy that. Yeah, those are probably the main ones right now. There are a few others that have come and gone, but I haven't been able to spend time on them recently. Oh, here we go. If you had to give up Gundam as a whole or another one of your hobbies, which one would you choose and why? I don't know if I can answer this question. I want to because it's a good question. It's a really hard, make you think kind of question. So of those I listed, if you said karate, jiu-jitsu, gunpla, Gundam, and the guitar thing, then guitar would be the easy drop because I haven't spent much time on that in the last couple weeks. Jiu-jitsu, in theory, I've dropped because I don't have time and COVID. I'm bad at saying no, so when I want to do things, I figure out how to do them. That's why I added jiu-jitsu on top of running a dojo, and I was probably training 20 hours a week on top of running a consulting business, and then adding this business on top of it, and then the consulting business started sliding away. But I'm not very good at not doing the things that I want to do. And so I don't know if that would ever actually happen, but that's a good question. Miguel A. Correa on Facebook asks, have you done any damage or weather Gundams yet? If you have, what tools, paints, and other supplies have you used? Very interested in starting that, but not sure how to start. I have not. There are definitely some great tutorials out there. The thing I look at starting first would be just simple chipping techniques, which is basically taking a sponge and using it to dab into paint, usually a metallic or black or both, depending on the exact technique and the effect you want, and dabbing it on exposed edges like for light weathering. So anyway, thank you guys all for watching. Hopefully you got some value. If your question didn't make it in here, sorry. So definitely feel free to ask it again next time I ask for questions. If you have a question that wasn't answered, feel free. Please put it down in the comments right on this video. Hopefully you guys got some value from it. So thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed the video, please like. And we'll see you next time.